Okay, I was born in the northern part of Spain. So my parents are right now 90 years old. So they survived the Spanish Civil War. And I am the youngest kid. By the time my parents were 50, 60 years old, I was a little kid. You know, we migrated to Germany, then went back to Spain, lived in the mountains, small town of 300 people. So at night, you know, very little electricity, no TV. This is during the Franco regime, which was a dictatorship. So I grew up with my two older parents, playing cards at night by the fire, and I always heard the same stories over again. The Civil War, justice, their wisdom over the years, because you have to understand that a lot of those killings were made by people that they're not strangers. They're people that you know. These communities are very small, so whether it was the war, whether it was something that the family did wrong to you or a neighbor, there's a problem with living in a very small community where everybody knows each other. It's like you have to live with each other, for better or for worse. So I grew up in this setting. So when I came to San Diego when I was 15 years old, I knew there was the sense of justice, fighting, courage, you know, they were already instilled in my spirit. I was also very adventurous. So I wanted to become an attorney and fight all those big fights, you know, human rights, the environment. And right out of high school, I got a job delivering papers for a law firm in downtown, small law firm. And after working there for 2 years, I was like, okay, my idealistic notion of what a lawyer does and the reality, they're like two complete different things. So I was at San Diego State as a freshman, and because my English was so horrible, I mean, it was bad. But I managed to get an upper division Spanish class, which happened to be, get this, Latin American theater. You know, this wonderful Spanish-speaking teacher just kind of said, hey, come, saw me as a wandering undergrad on campus. And that just was a turning point in my life. I didn't know it right there and there. I started going to these theater classes and learning about all these struggles that were happening all over Latin America. Now you have to understand that they were talking about peasants that were my parents. You know, we grew up in a small village of 300 people. I mean, Spain in the 70s and the 60s was still pretty much a Middle Ages community in a lot of ways. I mean, I was born in '67, okay? There was no electricity where I was born, okay? But there was a strong sense of community and everything else. So fast forward 1986, I'm taking this theater class, and all of a sudden, small class, we're talking about 12 people. The one thing about ensemble work in theater is that you get tight, you know, you get intense, you talk about issues, you talk about performance, so you get to know each other, you know, you spend a lot of time together. And you have to understand, when I left Spain, I left a very large family, like over 50 cousins. So when I came here, my first struggle was to find family, friends, like to patch that void that was, you know, huge. So this class kind of opened up this sort of, you know, little opportunity, this little insight into theater, being an artist. First year at San Diego State was a disaster. Out of high school and into the party world of San Diego State as a 19-year-old, you can imagine, you know, little Catholic boy from Spain, you know, just learning a little bit about, woohoo! Okay. So I ended up in City College the second year, all right, you know, working during the day, and then I took a theater class by accident, because you have to take theater class, right, speech and things. And this guy just goes to me, hey, listen, there's this theater teacher at UCSD that you have to meet. You know, they're looking for Latino actors. You know. I didn't really want to be an actor. I was just fascinated by the storytelling. So lo and behold, he set out an appointment for me, and I went to UCSD and I met this professor. This professor ended up becoming my mentor, almost like a father figure that sort of took him under his arm. You know, the following year he introduced me to the San Diego Repertory Theater, and next thing you know, I'm at UCSD studying Chicano theater. Now you have to understand, Chicano is the political arm of a Mexican-American consciousness. So you're very much, you know, a advocate for social justice. You know, you single out all the oppression, all those, you know, from police brutality to the economic issues. So I got very involved in that. But you see, I was from Spain, so you know, there's really an interesting contradiction there. You see, Spaniard, the conquistadores, Chicano, you know, denouncing the conquista. So I had to personally reconcile that, which was fine. I mean, like I said, I was born in a small town in a farm. Those were not, my ancestors were not the ones, you know, conquistadores coming looking for the gold. Because let me tell you, I traced my family back to the 14th century. You know, there were no castles, there were no horses. You know, we have donkeys and cows and sheep. So I mean, it's just not glamorous at all. So I became very much identified. You know, I'm a working family. I lived in Germany with my parents in the ghetto next to the Turks. So these were the issues that resonated with me. And so I got involved in theater. I got involved in the storytelling. And so in a strange way, those early memories of being with my parents and the family and keeping these histories alive, talking about a history that was not written. You see what I mean? This was all oral-based history. Because I'll tell you, about 10 years ago, I showed my dad this big, huge book, and that spoke about a specific history of where he lived, where we lived. And I fact-checked the author with my dad's recollection, and my dad, being almost 90 years old, was able to correct name, dates, to the point. I mean, like, on the smack. I mean, I wrote it all down and just like shipped it to the guy who wrote the book. I mean, that was how powerful it was. Years later, you know, as you get involved in the human rights, nonviolent struggle, you know, for example, you're introduced to the Quakers, which the number thing is just to be a witness. So all these things over the years kind of start morphing together, and Lord and behold, you know, my parents were already at that old age where you kind of see glimpses of wisdom. And to me, exploring literature and theater, ultimately, you know, when I met these incredible playwrights and saw these incredible shows, it was not just entertainment. You see what I mean? There was some true underlying wisdom that, in an art form that was over 2,000 years old. So that's my story. So that's what I'm doing today. You know, still collecting, going into communities, and reminding people about the power of the story, of their story. But ultimately, a story only has power when you're able to reflect. You see what I mean? Understand the power that you have with what you've seen, sort of reflecting in it and trying to find that message that you may want to put forward. And maybe you don't find the message, or someone else can find the message or relate to it. So that's that. Amen.